What's up, chicken nuggets? We've got a match of Tyler versus Ian here. This is game 2 of the MagneBoar zone versus Zekrom deck match. Thingamajig, whatever you want to call it. So Tyler starts with 2, Ian starts with 1. Ian goes first and he draws. He goes for Pokemon Collector to get his 3 basics. The 3 basics he chooses are Pachirisu, Cleffa, and Zekrom. If you don't know what Zekrom does, it's the star of this deck. It has 130 HP, it's a basic, its first attack has 2 colorless cost, does 20 plus 10 for each damage on Zekrom, its second attack is 2 electric, 1 anything, and is 120 and then 40 to itself. He then drops down the Shaman and the Pachirisu and then attaches an energy to Zekrom, and then I think he goes for the super scoop up and whiffs and then passes it over to Tyler. And Tyler decides to go for the collector to get 3 basics of his own. Those 3 basics are 1 Tepig, 1 Magnemite, and then another Tepig, because he needs 2 Tepigs because he risks Ian being able to Pokemon reversal it out, and then he can't set up his MagneBoar, which is like the main thing he needs to set up in his deck. The MagneBoar lets him attach as many fire energies as he wants to his Pokemon, so it's really important for him. Reversal is kind of like Gust of Wind, if you remember that card. You can choose one of your opponent's bench and then bring it to the active. He drops them all down, and then attaches a fire energy to Reshiram. Reshiram, similar to Zekrom, first attack is Outrage, 20 plus 10. Its HP is 130, but its second attack is 2 fire, 1 anything, does 120, and then you have to discard 2 fire. Tyler goes for the Eek, shuffles his hand into his deck, and Cleffa goes to sleep. Ian goes for the Copycat. Copycat makes you shuffle your hand into your deck, and then you draw the same amount of cards as your opponent, so they both have 6 cards. Ian then attaches an electric energy to Zekrom, or no, he changes his mind, attaches it to Shaman so he can retreat into his Cleffa, and then does the same thing. They both stay asleep, and at this point, they keep, my bad. Tyler goes for Communication to swap out one of his cards in order to get another Pokemon, which is a Magneton, because he's trying to set up his Magnetons, I guess. He then goes for Judge. They both shuffle their hand into their deck to draw 4. That's pretty good for Tyler because Tyler has outs, specifically Magnezone, which lets him draw until he has 6, which is pretty ridiculous. But regardless, it's still just a solid card if you have a really bad hand. And then Tyler draws his 4. He gets a broken 4. He gets a Pignite, an MagneBoar, and a not double colors, Rare Candy. So then you can evolve both of his Tepigs. Rare Candy lets you basically skip your stage 1 and go straight to stage 2. They both basically pass their turn here because they stay asleep, and they can't really do anything because when Cleffa's asleep they can't retreat or anything. Eventually it becomes Ian's turn again, and they both wake up, and then Ian decides to go for the Eek again. This is why I'm kind of like annoyed by Heart Gold Soul Silver meta, because it's all just Cleffa stall. You just sit there setting up and sitting behind your Cleffa, and then a lot of times nothing happens, and then a lot of times I've seen games where you deck out because you're both just sitting there with Cleffa stalling. He then attaches an electric energy to Zekrom. It drops down another Zekrom, and then goes for the Juniper, which lets him discard his hand and draw 7 new cards, which is really strong in certain decks. He then goes for the reversal, and he gets heads. He finally decides to bring out the Magneton, which is probably the best play, just to get it out of here so he can't go for his Magnezone. He then kills it with Zekrom's second attack, doing 40 to himself, and passes it over to Tyler. Tyler then goes for the Communication to get the other MagneBoar, which lets him attach as many fire energy to his Pokemon as he'd like. He takes advantage of that and attaches 1 to his Reshiram and then 1 to his other MagneBoar. The other MagneBoar, it just does 150 for 2 fire and 2 colorless, and then you have to discard all the fire energies attached to him. It's good to, just get one-shot bigger Pokemon, potentially. He brings out Reshiram and then Revenge kills Zekrom, doing 120. Ian goes, he brings out Cleffa, might as well, it has free retreat. He then uses plus power, which is 10 extra damage, makes all his attacks do 10 extra damage this turn, and then attaches an electric energy to Zekrom. He then proceeds to go for another Juniper, discarding his hand to draw 7 new cards, which is pretty strong. And then he goes for Super Scoop Up, he gets Heads, he then drops down Pachirisu, doing Self-Generate, and then using Shaman to move the energy to Zekrom. He then brings out Zekrom, and then Revenge kills Reshiram, because he does 130 to plus power, which is enough to one-shot the Reshiram, which is pretty good. They were looking at the card there because they were trying to figure out if it would do extra damage to himself also, and it turns out that it will, so it'll do 50 to himself. He then goes for that. Tyler brings out Clayfa. He might as well. It has free retreat, so it's like, yeah, it really didn't matter. He then uses energy retrieval, attaches both of those energies to his MagneBoar, so now he's got a fully charged MagneBoar. Tyler then goes for Collector again, getting 3 basics, 2 of which are going to be Magnemites, and then a Pig Knight, or not a Pig Knight, a Tepig just because he can. Then he decides to drop down the Magnemite so he can start setting up his Magnezones, and he goes for the Eek with Clayfa. He takes a while to shuffle here, so I had to speed that up, and then after he shuffles up and draws a 6, he's going to pass it over to Ian. Ian's going to attach an electric energy to Zekrom so he can retreat it, and then he goes for Eek, which passes it over to Tyler again, and he... can't remember what he does here. I believe he just attaches an energy to his Magnemite, and then goes for Oak's New Theory, which lets him shuffle his hand into his deck to draw 6, basically like Clayfa, but in supporter form. And then he draws 6 cards. Then attaching another energy to a Magnemite, and then going for the Eek again, I want to say. Yeah, he goes for the Eek again, just so he can try and set up his Magnezones, because other than that, he really has no other plays, and he doesn't want to waste his MagneBoar on the Clayfa. So he does that, and gets Tails, so his Clayfa stays asleep. Ian goes, and goes for the Junk Arm to get back. He chooses Reversal, but then he sits there and decides if he really wants to do that, and then he eventually decides that, yeah, he wants to Reversal. He gets Heads and brings out the MagneBoar. He brings out his Zekrom, or no, he changes his mind again, and then I think he passes it over to Tyler, which wasn't all that smart in my opinion. I feel like you should only really Reversal if you're planning on killing that Pokemon, because a lot of people run Switch anyway. So Tyler is going to go for the Junk Arm, discarding a piece of Rayquaza Deoxys and a Clayfa to get back Pokemon communication, using that to, I believe, get a Magnezone Prime, and that makes me believe that he has a Rare Candy in hand. That meaning he can play the Magnezone without needing a Magneton, which is pretty strong, because then he can start magnetic drawing like crazy. Also, he attaches an energy to the Magnezone and then goes for Magnetic Draw to draw inside a 6, which is pretty sweet. Magnezone has an attack called Lost Burn, which lets them remove from play any energy attached to any of his Pokemon in play, and then it does 50 for each one he removed, which is really strong, especially with MagneBoar. He then goes for Oak's New Theory, shuffles his hand into his deck to draw 6 new cards, and he gets to switch, the one-up switch he runs in the deck, which is hilarious. So he brings out the other MagneBoar, and goes for MagneBoar's first attack, which does 50, and since Clayfa only has 30 HP, it dies. Ian just brings out Pachirisu because he's got no other plays, and then passes over to Tyler, which is not really good for Ian right now. Tyler then goes for Oaks again, shuffling his hand into his deck to draw 6. I want to say he's used all three that he runs alone in like the past couple turns. He then goes for an energy on Magnezone, so now he can Magnetic Draw until he has 6, and he then just goes for the 150 attack, killing his Pachirisu, passing it over to Ian. Ian then goes for the Junk Arm, getting back plus power, I want to say. Yeah, plus power. And then he plays 3 plus powers like a boss, attaches an energy, and does 150 to revenge kill that MagneBoar, doing 70 to himself. Tyler then brings out Clayfa because free retreat and such, and then goes for the Junk Arm again, discarding double judges, and then I think he goes ahead and gets a rare candy so he can evolve into his other Magnezone. Now he can Magnetic Draw twice a turn, which is hecka beast. And he uses the first one, and then gets a Collector, grabbing a Cleffa and a Tepig. And then at this point, I believe he fodders away the Cleffa for Pokemon communication, getting a piece of Rayquaza Deoxys Legend so that he can play it down. You need both pieces of the Legend in order to play it on the field. And this one in specific does 150 for 2 Fire, 1 Colorless, and 1 Electric. And you have to discard all the Fire energy attached to him. Then, if he takes any prizes, you get to take an extra prize. So it basically takes 2 prizes every time he kills a Pokemon. He then goes for the energy retrieval to get back 2 fire energy. Uses Emboar's ability to attach both of them to the Legend. And then I think he goes for Magnetic Draw, draws until he has 6, and then goes for another energy retrieval, getting back fire and electric energy, attaching them both to the Legend. And then he retreats into the Legend and kills the Zekrom, getting 2 prizes. And at this point, I believe Ian is pretty much out of options and scoops. So that's the game. We'll be posting Game 3 soon. Check out our Twitter and Facebook fan page. It'll be below in the annotation. Check out Game 1 if you haven't already. Subscribe to Play to Win Pokemon. It's a group of Kenny and Amelia, 2 really good players, posting videos similar to ours. So if you like our stuff, you'll definitely like their stuff. Subscribe to us if you haven't already, and expect more videos over the weekend, and peace out, guys.